Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Chase, aka That Gay Jedi, and welcome to another video. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'm very excited for this video because I've been going through a lot, and I kind of wanted to make a video outside of my car, but still retain sort of like the casual vibe. So I'm literally sitting on my floor. But anyways, welcome to this video. Today we're talking about 20s because listen, your 20s are hard. This is something everyone knows, but I kind of like at 28, I kind of thought maybe I was done with 20s being hard, and maybe I've kind of been through like the hard 20s thing. And the universe had other plans, and I kind of just forgot how hard they can be. I kind of went from like the highest of highs in London and at Star Wars Celebration, and like sort of that 1 month of April or whenever it was, or April, to the lowest of lows, and I'm feeling pretty like just chewed up by the universe. Like the image I keep getting in my head is sort of the whale from Pinocchio, just gestating Pinocchio and Geppetto and then just spitting them out. And I just feel like I'm like covered in ocean water, like a little raw, just like what just happened? But anyways, it kind of got me thinking about like what stories and characters have really resonated with me in relationship to me just being in my 20s. And I'm talking about like new projects, not like, I got into Blade Runner, but like that's an old thing. But like I kind of was thinking about what new stories and characters I've experienced over the last like 6 to 8 to 12 months. No, not a year, but like 6 to 8 months. What stories have like really been there for me, and what characters have really been there for me without me even realizing that they were there for me. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so first and foremost, we have to start with Willow. And I know I talk about Willow a lot, but that's for a lot of very important reasons. And when I was thinking about like why Willow resonated so much with me, like through the lens of just existing in my 20s, I have to say like one thing I've realized or kind of like come to understand in my own way is that I feel like earlier 20s, you are getting to know yourself, and you're like, okay, who am I? And like, how do I relate to the world? And like, what is all of that? And like, you're kind of taking inventory, you're understanding yourself, you're learning about yourself. But then like, I feel like the second half of your 20s are like believing in yourself. It's like a different level of self-awareness. Like my friend and I like joke a lot about like activating your God complex. I'm like, yes, everyone should have a God complex within reason. But like, I don't know, I feel like that's kind of related to just believing in who you are and knowing who you are in like a very deeply spiritual way. So earlier 20s is sort of getting to know who I am, and later 20s, I feel like I've been sort of challenged on who I am, which is why believing in myself is like so important. And like, I gotta say, like, there's an importance to like receiving feedback, you know what I mean? But there's also a power in like defining myself and believing in what I do and how I show up, and like not letting other people try that or test that or like not believe that. Like if people don't want to believe that you're trying your best, or if people don't want to believe that you're doing like the right thing, it's like as long as you know that you're doing the right thing and like you're trying your best while you're also like receiving feedback, but you're also like, no, like I'm showing up and I'm believing in how I'm showing up because I know who I am. Like that's a powerful thing, and I feel like that's something I've been learning, and that's something that Elora Danan from Willow I think also learned on her journey. Like her powers are strongest when she fully believes in who she is and lets that belief she lets that belief in herself just sort of flow through her magic. And it's just like goddess vibes. And that's what I mean, like the God activation complex. Like it just feels like really believing yourself and allowing that belief in yourself to just sort of like be in your awareness at all times. It's like a very powerful thing. It's kind of a harder thing, and I think it's something I'm learning towards the end of my 20s. And then I also have to say, like with Willow, there's also like a really beautiful balance of drama with like unseriousness in that show, like super high stakes, but then they also like let a very like innocent energy be there, and sort of like a buoyance exist even in like the direst of situations. So it's a kind of something I've been thinking about in terms of like allowing that levity to exist even when the universe is putting me through it. So that's also something that Willow as a show kind of like, I think was there for me in that way. And it's something that I definitely have always appreciated about the show. But I think more recently I'm like, damn, I was like, I really do like that show for that reason, because I think it's a beautiful thing if you can learn to do that in your everyday life. So next I wanted to talk about Jedi Survivor, but also the reality TV show Survivor, because I kind of got into that pretty recently, and I love it so much. And I just think it's interesting that like I got into two things called like Jedi Survivor and Survivor at the same time. And one of the things I wanted to like highlight that's both in the game and the TV show is like the navigation of like complications with like friendships and different relationships and sort of like the chaos of everybody trying to know and believe in who they are. You know what I mean? Because especially like I'm friends with like people of all ages, but like a lot of my other friends that are like around like in their 20s, like younger or older, I feel like there's a certain chaos that comes from all of us just trying to figure out ourselves, right? And obviously it's going to be a very, very bumpy ride, but to me, the Mantis crew, and I talked a little bit about this in my Jedi Survivor like review of the game. The Mantis crew does a really good job of sort of allowing that like complicatedness of life and relationships to exist while also like respecting each other, which I think is a really, really cool thing. And like, obviously it's a very real part to Survivor when you're like watching people like play this social game and kind of getting to know each other and bump up against boundaries and stuff like that. But I don't know. I just feel like that there's the Mantis crew has like a pretty generous spirit in which they navigate that. And each of them has like their own life paths that are just moving forward and moving in different directions while again, maintaining respect for each other. And I think that's a very I feel like that's a very late 20s thing because I've never, and also probably the rest of my life thing. That's the other thing. It's like what I'm talking about isn't exclusive to the late 20s, but I feel like it's definitely concentrated or coming about in a different way. So yeah, that's my Jedi Survivor like thing. And then also like metamorphosis through hard times is also, I think, a really important thing because like when bad things happen to us, like it's our job to like contextualize that and make meaning out of it in the most like positive way possible, or at least like that's what I think. And that's what I try to do. And like, that is very specific to the TV show Survivor because like it's one of my favorite things about the show, and I think it's a very empowering aspect to the show, especially in later seasons when these people like go on these wild journeys on Survivor and then they like come out totally different people, but a lot of times they come out different people for like really good reasons and in really powerful ways. Like maybe the one person who thought they were like super shy or like weak actually was like really strong in certain ways and like doesn't have to feel that way. And so I think there's a real like a really beauty at allowing like metamorphosis like that to happen and like remaining fluid and not being too attached to like how you identify as a person or who you think you are, and like allow like the times that you're living in and like the things that the universe is like putting you through to influence your sense of self. So yeah, I just want to like allow change to occur and like take pride in who I am and not be scared to come out of a situation or a thing or a relationship or like whatever, like not allowing myself to feel scared of who I'm going to become, you know what I mean? And allowing myself to let go of past versions of me. So Jedi Survivor also does that, you know what I mean? It's a very beautiful part of the game, and the character development in those games is incredible. So yeah, and the last show I wanted to talk about was Rings of Power, because I didn't get into Lord of the Rings or until Rings of Power. Like I had never seen Lord of the Rings until Rings of Power. And I really love that show. It resonated a lot with me. And like when I was looking back at it through like my 20s lens again, like I realized how much communication and open-mindedness is required of all these different characters, like the dwarves and the elves and the humans, all having to communicate super clearly on behalf of like their own people and then their own interests, while also remaining open-minded to like other people's realities. And that's like something I've definitely been working on lately, is like just sort of being more open-minded. And like I think it's a really beautiful demonstration of sort of like having boundaries while also wanting to work with other people and wanting to do things that are right, and like having that drive to like do things that are morally right and just, but also like maintaining your own boundaries. And like again, kind of this is all kind of related, right, to like the believing in who you are and knowing who you are, and allowing like flow and fluidity to exist. But I just find that the character's abilities to maintain those boundaries to be very like powerful, especially as someone in their 20s. And yeah, again, like communication and open-mindedness, like they really have to go the extra mile to like try to like not let the darkness rise type of a thing in Rings of Power. And it's a very interesting sort of like social political dynamic between all these different like races of people in Rings of Power. So I love that show, and I think it was very much there for me in that way. But anyways, when I look at all these shows side by side, I also notice how each one has a lot to do with like growing up and maturing. Like each of these shows and like plots have a lot to do. It's not like coming of age, but sort of like maturing, I think is the word. And I feel like at 28, I feel like I'm very much like adulting in a different way. I feel like I'm very much like maturing, which is a weird thing to be aware of. But I welcome it. And it's kind of fun, I guess. But I also say that each of these projects is also super like high fantasy. Like even Jedi Survivor is like part of the reason why that's what like my favorite Star Wars story is, because it's one of the most like high fantasy vibed Star Wars story. Like it's probably like more sci-fi fantasy than like a lot of the main saga films. But anyways, I just like that like the fantasy genre isn't a genre I've really like touched since I was a kid. So it's also like this really cool like coming home feeling of like sort of like merging inner child with like grown me and coming home to that genre with like added flavors of like reclaiming it. Cause like I think I had like, I don't know, growing up, like I was like, well, I can't like fantasy anymore. I'm an adult. So it's kind of like a cool coming home, but with like added context and like I said, like a cool merging between like my inner child and like the grown version of me. So, yeah, I find a lot of like strength and empowerment in that return to the fantasy genre. But, also on that note, I have also, when I went home for the last time I was home, I came back with like all of my Game Boy video games and I was a GameCube bitch. Do you know what I mean? Like that GameCube was like my thing. And so I brought back my GameCube, I brought my Game Boy Advance, and I brought back all my video games. So keep an eye out because I might be streaming these video games very soon here on the channel. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below and click like, subscribe if you like the vibe. And let me know in the comments like what stories and characters have been there for you, because I would love to hear what you guys, I don't know, like who you gravitate towards and what stories and characters are there for you through hard times. And thank you so much for watching. May the Force be with you always.